camps almost on daily basis.
Yeah.
Targeted killings were all over the place. There were times when Boko Haram will block major highways and kill as many people as possible with sewing,
Chainsaw.
yeah, almost cutting people into two by their torso. There were times when almost every road in and out of Maiduguri has been taken over by Boko Haram, except for a few ones. The only being Maiduguri Damaturu Road. Even that one, there was a time Boko Haram, attempted to blow up the only bridge linking
The two states.
linking Maiduguri to Benishek, Kaga local government. They almost blew it off. So, given that was the only way in and out of Maiduguri, Boko Haram takes pleasure in blocking the road whenever it wishes. And since it is the only way in or out, there will hardly be a day where you don't find large population coming in. So elsewhere, they overrun communities. A whole local government, Bama, was sacked. Goza local government was sacked. Kaga local government, Kukawa, Monguno, Ganze, Gamboru, Marte, Mafa, Dikwa, Konduga, Magumeri, Gubio, Damasak, Gudumbali. All these local governments were overrun between 2014 and 2015 or even 16. Now, most of these local governments have been resettled. People have returned. Farming activities have commenced. Major markets were reopened. The complaints you now hear from the people is of bad roads, is of connectivity to electricity, telecom networks, banks, and so on. In 2015, even those who had all these things left them and fled.
Yeah.
Now, 2 million people or more were jam-packed into about 10 or 15 IDP camps, besides the many unofficial ones. Government knew about unofficial camps, knew that it was their responsibility, but they made do with it because they knew that there was nothing they could do. They have to allow people to, set up camps by themselves because the government was overstretched. So now Boko Haram went beyond Maiduguri and the northeast. They were almost about taking over major cities from other parts of the country. Kano. Kaduna, the federal capital, FCT.
Yeah.
And they were sneaking through various communities in the middle belt, around Kogi, Benue, and so on, carrying out pockets of attack. Till date, a faction of them, the Ansaru, are operating within that axis. That was a group that splintered from the Boko Haram. So now before 2015 we did not have ISWAP, but by 2015 Boko Haram formally aligned with the ISIS, an international terrorist network, receiving support, funding, and intelligence, inspiration, and many other things. Now, what we fought between 2009 and 2015 were there for two different things, and then from 2015 till date are largely two different entities. So from 2015 they were much bigger, stronger, much more connected than they were. Now they had many local governments under their control, having access to farmlands and other resources of the people. So they were even richer. So, this was the situation the country was in. There was no day you will go out and you will not be afraid for your life. Markets will open at 9. Nobody is sure if it will run through the day.
Yeah.
By 1, it may be shut. Everywhere will be locked up without any government order or instruction. People run for their lives. So nowadays, go to markets, see the crowd. Banks were operating between 9 and 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Schools will open in the morning. You are not sure if the school will run. So when you are not sure whether to take your child or not, because there might be a bomb explosion just next door, and your child will be trapped. When it is evening, and you have male kids, and they do not return on the at the time they used to return home, you go to hospitals and look and check in the mortuaries whether their dead bodies may have been
registered in the mortuary.
Yeah. So these were the situations. Marriage ceremonies no longer hold. Naming ceremonies no longer hold. In fact, not just ceremonies, the number of people who are ready to take the risk of marrying their daughter to someone else were few.
Yeah.
You could be marrying your daughter to Boko Haram. But then again, should you resist if he is truly Boko Haram?
That's another thing.
That's another thing. So the subject of marriage was you just get 2-3 of your relatives quietly in the night to go into the compound of the lady's house, and then solemnize the marriage. People will not when it is ordinarily meant to be public, so that people will witness it, but only for people in the neighborhood to wake up tomorrow to see a new lady has already been moved in, and just about time you wonder how she got there, you will learn that one of the members of the community had gotten married to her. You know, so sporting activities short, you know, everything. But today, sometimes I close at work very late. Don't forget, we used to have curfews starting
6
from
to 6.
6. There were times it would be drawn back to 4 p.m. For over a year, it was 7. Up till date, we are not. The curfew is still 11:30.
Yeah.
But I know I close very late from work, and then go ahead to do other things. I return home 12 or 12:30. And sometimes, as a journalist, you will want to see what is happening, whether you know there are security operatives on the roads, on the streets. So you will go out 12, 1, and you are safe. You feel safe. You return home. But these things were never kids who, those who were born in 2010 are 12 years now. They
have no experience.
Yeah, so left to them, there was never a time when in Maiduguri people there was a motorbike, or people go about their business all through the night.
Yes, that's true. So now this is an overview you've given me about how the Northeast was.
Yes.
How about other parts of the country?
Even other parts of the country, what people don't want to admit is that, okay, let's enter banditry. There has never been a time when you do not have banditry or robbery on the streets, or people rustling cattle, or you know, irate youths, you know, breaking into or burgling into shops or people's homes, or you know, ransacking markets and so on. In fact, banditry is to a large extent common historically to certain parts of the country. At some point, even what did Bawa Jangwarzo do? What do the Hausa rulers of the pre-jihad period do in Hausa land? They allow people to go to the farms, grow their crops, but during harvest they will take over. They will raid markets. These were rulers, the Habia rulers. It was in fact what, you know, led to the reform movement of Usman Danfodio. So banditry or this kind of social vices, this criminal activities are part of a people's civilization. When civilization reaches certain point, then these things crop up, because and then when you overcome them, you enter a new phase in your civilization. And when those reforms outgrow their circumstances, their time, and the crisis will resurface in another form or under a different name and so on. But it is common for people who for a population like our own, you know, to have pockets of criminals who do not want to really work hard within conventional ways, and who naturally make themselves to believe that they are marginalized, they are suffering injustice and so on, and so decide to, you know, take laws into their hands. This has been a well-known
but this case it is to a larger extent.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So these things are developing. They have been going on, and you know, the communities will tell you that the roots of this banditry goes back to 2000, 2009, 2000, and so on. so what we now have is a culmination of what has been, breeding for quite a long time. By 2016-17, the Boko Haram crisis has opened up has opened up a new channel for people to acquire arms. And not only that, they have now inspired other, criminals to also, acquire arms and then fight the state.
Yeah.
So people drew inspiration from the activities of Boko Haram and then jacked up their own activities. Kidnapping has been there in other parts of the country, in the south largely, and they were more organized then. But the form in which the kind of abductions we have now are largely popularized by Boko Haram from the kidnap of Chibok girls. But because even before Chibok girls, Boko Haram were in the habit of kidnapping women. But that version where you had school children and in the hundreds, 200 disappear into the thin air was popularized by Boko Haram from the Chibok girl.
Yeah.
So, in fact, we strongly believe that some of the bandits are working hand in hand with Boko Haram. We know for a fact. We have run several reports establishing the links between Boko Haram and bandits, because merchants of war will always, people who are violent will always be attracted by violence. So when they see that, in the northeast they don't get as much as they want, they move to other parts of the country. And because they don't carry any mark, they will board in our bosses and so on, and then they move across these places. You can't tell, you don't know them. So in the Boko Haram crisis inspired the bandits to jack up their operations. And this was the case. You already have societies that were fragile already. The local government authorities have been weakened or are already weak in the first place. So these problems kept on, developing. By 2017, 16-17, they were already ripe for a bigger showdown. And it was never in the priority, to be very candid with our government. It was never in government's priority that, it will fight bandits. The bandits were, an offshoot. Nobody expected them. But 2-3 years into the administration, they started becoming even much greater concern than Boko Haram. They were a greater concern. So, but the government, when understood that, Boko Haram was perhaps on its way to becoming a continental problem for Nigeria, because they were operating in Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, and even beyond Libya, and at some point they were trying to team up with the rebels in Mali and other parts of West Africa. So the government faced them, and then they were largely reduced. Now people are saying that Boko Haram are still there. With the trend in 2015, 2016, if nothing is being done, Boko Haram would have become more deadly than they are. So that they are being, contained. They are that if people want to be sincere, you know very well that major achievements have been met in the case of Boko Haram. Shekau was killed, and whatever anyone will say, Shekau's killing is all thanks to the Nigerian army. It is part, if he was killed as a result of clashes between factions, then the clashes was as a result of the pressure mounted on them by the Nigerian forces. So therefore, and then after Shekau, how many other leaders, commanders of the group were, you know, taken out by the troops? You know, 60,000 of them, or 79,000 of them have, you know, surrendered.
Yeah.
Out of these 79, over 16, 17,000 were actual fighters. You know, so who would have thought that this would happen? In 2014, a committee was set up to dialogue with them. It didn't work. Another was set up, I think, in 2013, you know, before the first one. Yeah, nothing was done. So now they are the ones turning themselves over. So it tells you that there is progress.
Pressure.
You know, that is the pressure on them is so much, and they are openly saying it.
Yeah.
So. And let me just say, you have asked another question about how I will rate the performance of
The
President.
president.
Oh, it's fantastic. Fantastic. In terms of, you know, re-equipping the armed forces of Nigeria. You know, the police are recruiting 10,000 every year. In terms of, you know, equipment, Nigerian army is being, you know, improved and provided with equipment that I think it has never seen in its recent history. We are, you know, procuring fighter jets that are some of the international best. We are providing, you know, we are equipping the Air Force, the Navy, so that our waterways are safer. You know, we are equipping almost all the armed forces of the country. So if someone now says these are things that we have not done in the last 30 years, you know, and sometimes I keep saying that, okay, there are things that the government will not tell you, but there are major changes in the army, major changes in the area of intelligence, you know, and so, you know, imagine if we are fighting a conventional war. You know, will you remember when we were fighting IPOP, when they started, you know, openly attacking public properties, and government introduced Operation Python Dance?
Yeah.
Because they gave themselves, you know, a name and their flashpoints are known. It didn't take long; they were taken out. You know, so if it were to be a conventional warfare, we were not. The war would have been over a long time ago. So there is these are common with, you know, unconventional, you know, guerrilla wars. You know, you don't put your finger on
one particular place.
or when it will end. It has to be continuous, and this helps you, you know, in the process build a new system, a set of responses. You know, build the communities, build resilience, build, you know, the system, so that even in the future these things do not. Very few countries, you know, came out of similar situations within so short. As far as we are concerned, we are over Boko Haram. What we have are skirmishes of people, of some of them who are now, you know, trying to, you know, who are between the the devil and the deep blue sea. Are we to surrender or to go back and live in misery and poverty, or under perpetual threat of being attacked, or by jets or by military operations? They feel already besieged, encircled. So but there were times Boko Haram attempt to even overrun military barracks.
Yeah.
Where are they now? When last did you hear similar attack on military formations? So we must commend the government. I commend
Now,
President Buhari.
there is a lot of people connecting the war in Libya to what is happening in Nigeria. That weaponry are being easily smuggled into the country because of the excess number of weapons that are there in Libya. How do you take that?
Yeah, that's also true. The corridor between Libya to West Africa and way down into parts of Nigeria has been a violent one. From Libya down also to the Mediterranean, it has been a very volatile one since historical times, and they have been a source of trouble for states that rose along those roads. And that is why the Boko Haram experience is not the first experience we have of similar crisis. And movement of people and goods, both wanted and unwanted, across those axes have been on. And they are not things that can be easily handled. There are large swaths of land, there are so many ungoverned, open glades. You don't know under whose control they are.
Yeah.
And these terrorists have a mastery of the various, oases, various desert formations, various routes. They have a mastery of the territory, so they move at will easily, when even authorized state parties cannot really move. So this is the case. And the case of Libya, everyone who knows the development in the Lake Chad region knows how these two places influence each other. The West Africa sometimes, can be a source of labor for crisis in that zone. And sometimes Libya becomes the source for weapons or inspiration or training and so on. So it has largely affected the state of security in the sub-Saharan Africa. And I quite agree that unless and perhaps we have contained that to a large extent by way of the multinational joint task force, which brings together the forces of Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, as well as the Nigerian state. At least the road has been made a bit narrower for the terrorists to move freely as they used to. So from that point, we have started seeing major improvements a state of security in the region. So I think, yeah.
All right. I wanted to, but let me keep it for the last. Let's turn to a rather dramatic turn of events around Mr. Tukur Mamu, who was well known as a journalist and recently became popular uh, as a bandit negotiator. Help us make a sense of the drama around the matter, please.
It's already out there in the media, you know. He was known as a journalist, and many people did not like the style of his journalism. And in fact, that is what made him popular. He has done that for nearly 10, 15, or 20 years, um, you know, which brings him so many times face to face with state authorities. I'm sure his arrest did not check him because this isn't the first time. You know, he's used to it. He has been accused of, being blackmail, using blackmail, intimidation, and so on, uh, through his publication. And so that is where that is how he became popular across the country, especially in the north. Now, as you've rightly said, in 2019 or so, when banditry became all over the place, he and Sheikh Gumi, as well as Professor Yusuf, former NHIS, executive secretary, became deeply involved in, what they call, dialogue with the Boko Haram, with the bandits. We saw them in going into the bushes to meet the terrorists. Gumi said that at a point that the government is to be blamed and that they should not be carpet bombed, and so on, because they are where they are because of the failure of the state, and so on. And suddenly they started in a very curious way to defend banditry. And my understanding of this is very clear. If you want to say that you are promoting humanity and that peaceful coexistence among people, and that you are trying to establish the sanctity of human lives, then you should know very well that one who is bent on stopping others from living peacefully should be removed from the place. Whether we go out every day, there were times we'll go broke for weeks, for months. There were times people go to their homes without food, without money to pay school fees. There were people who went to school self-sponsored, sometimes striking back and front. Some of them paying school fees through begging or hard labor, and so on, and they made it. So to now say that because the state has failed to provide education and so on, I am legitimizing it for myself to take up arms and to stop people who refuse to make similar choices but work their way through all the hardships and made fortunes, or even still struggling to earn a living, and then you take over their farmlands, or seize their vehicles, or stop them and kidnap them and force their families to pay ransom for these people. You kill them, you take them out.
They do not deserve to be
They
in the
do not.
society.
But then Tukur Mamu and co thought differently, and said that they should be, negotiated with. What it was is that, they should have been, they should apologize for the Nigerian state, and even at that, wait for whatever the Nigerian state does for them, just like Boko Haram members who have surrendered. That you have surrendered doesn't mean that it is over. You have to wait for the government to take a decision whether to, you are just by surrendering, you are saying that you have given up fighting. You have admitted that you no longer have what it takes to fight. But so the government, it is left for the government whether to accept their surrender, reintegrate you, or to, punish you. So ordinarily, these people are supposed to lay down their arms immediately, and then submit themselves to authorities, whether they are killed or not, whether they are punished, whatever it was government does to them, they still deserve it. But Tukur Mamu and co said that no, the government shouldn't, bomb them. Yes, the government shouldn't bomb them, but not for the kinds of reasons they promote. The only reason why they shouldn't be bombed is because we may not want collateral damages. Otherwise, anyone who takes upon himself the right to kill at will and to live by killing has only, even the bandits will not be surprised when they are killed. I am sure, because they know it. So this man appeared to say that he doesn't see any wisdom in killing them, in punishing them, and beyond that, he openly, started to interface with them, even going as far as to negotiating on their behalf. So we do not have the details. The DSS has said its reason that yes, they are suspicious of him. They have certain questions over his, involvement and so on. Then his family responded and said the allegations were false. Now it is left for the Nigerian people to, believe in either a 1 month's family or a Nigerian's or Nigeria's major security institution. It is a choice.
Now, don't you think this will discourage others from playing similar roles in terms of in the future, in terms of negotiating with these bandits?
So, is he the only person who is negotiating with terrorist leaders?
No.
We have organizations that, by virtue of the works they are doing, they have earned reputation across board, are known worldwide to be involved in negotiating on behalf of governments, and at major levels, even international terrorist organizations. We have organizations, we have many humanitarian organizations, the ICRC and so on. A lot of them are involved in these things. So even in the case of Boko Haram, major negotiations were led by these organizations, and even other state official or authorities. There are bodies responsible for that. There are people responsible for that, and there are people well known to have been doing that. But I would want to tell you, anytime you see someone doing this kind of things, and the popularity around these things are cultivated, deliberately flared up, that is a red flag, because these are things we are doing by some, for some purposes. Sometimes you just there are reasons, but I know large number of people here in Maiduguri and beyond who have been involved in major negotiations, but nobody knows them. It takes privilege to know them. They interact with us normally, but they never make the mistake of saying that we negotiate, because you don't say these things. You observe absolute neutrality, which includes, of course, keeping the information to yourself. So to now say that it will discourage others, yes, let it do so, because we don't want people who, by just being intermediaries with terrorist organization, will go out and challenge the Nigerian state, or suggest that we do not have option rather than to
put down arms and let them be.
Yes, we don't. We want people who are genuine, who will do it.
They are neutral.
Yes, I don't say Tukur Mamu has any, level of involvement. As far as I'm concerned, I am, waiting for what the courts will say. But then again, we have a way of, looking down on our security institutions. Whatever is the case, the Nigerian state has a system to establish a case such as this, whether it is raised by a security institution. The courts are there, and the matter is in the hands of the court. Let us not even preempt what the courts will, finally say. But then, since the attention around the subject, the way in which people are, released, we carry out press briefing, are you a state? You are not a state. You should have done that with some level of humility, relate with government. So even if he is not involved, now the attitude is problematic, and I think that if he is, truly not involved, the courts will, establish the truth, and then, but then it will also teach people the hard way, the manner in which they should conduct themselves in instances like that, not to go out and keep talking badly of the government, and then as if you are and issuing statements as if you are some sort of a paragon of virtue. So I think this is my take.
Well, I have one last thing, but I will save it for another day.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming here, and it is well and educated session I have with you. Thank you very much to our listeners. Care to catch us next week Tuesday as we discuss more of this. Have a great weekend.